Okay, so I'm going to talk you through a little bit of how you might use Mentimeter, if that would be something that you would find useful for your teaching. So what I will do is I will talk you through my short presentation, and then I'll talk you through the website a little bit. So I'll just share my screen for now, and hopefully you can see my screen okay. So Mentimeter is something that I typically use in my teaching, but only for one or two slides, just so I can keep students engaged. Now, this is a tool that I've used before the pandemic, but it is something that I find useful for at least tracking if students are actually on the call and are listening to my online lectures. So it's an interactive tool that I use to help engage students, but also allows them to get their points of view across if they're not so comfortable using the meeting chat. It is anonymous, but you can also kind of filter for things like profanity, things like that. But it's a way of you can use to check if they're understanding, following along. So you can use it to gauge student comprehension. You can use it to see if there are any particular topics that they're having difficulty with, but also sometimes it's just a fun way to break up learning. Use it as a kind of icebreaker activity, just so that you're kind of getting students on board with paying attention. Now, there is a wide range of things that you can use Mentimeter for. You can sign up with a free account, but there is some limitations on some of the functions. But the basic things you can do is do multiple choice questions. You can get people to rank their answers, get them to scale different things, use word clouds, or open-ended. What I can do is show you some of the things, the techniques I've used in my lectures. So it's fairly simple, easy for students to use. They can join using the app, or they go to menti.com and enter the 6-digit join code. Be aware that this join code will expire after a while. So if you create the Mentimeter 3 days advance of class, put the kind of code in your PowerPoint slides, you might have to refresh it because it might expire. So I think it lasts typically between 2 to 7 days. So be aware if you do put the codes in advance of your lectures, is to make sure that the code is still live. The answers are given real time. So if you're doing an MCQ question, you can kind of stop, lock the questions and go over what the correct answer would be. There is a maximum of 2 slides per presentation with the free account, but I can show you kind of how to get around that a little bit if you want to have more than 2 slides per presentation. So this is my next slide. This is what it looks like. So it's the aim of it is to kind of engage your audience and try and eliminate awkward silences, something which I have a massive problem with my with students. Sometimes it's difficult to engage them. So the website link is there, and if I go to my next slide, you'll see that I've got different types of topics I've used this for. So for the example I've given for stress management, that's where I've used an open-ended question. For happy, excited words, I've asked them to submit 1 or 2 words to produce a word cloud. So I've used it for slightly different things. I've also used it polls for ice breaking. So I find it works quite well for word clouds, particularly if you are wanting to refresh key concepts, because the more someone might, if more than one student says that word, it will get bigger in the word cloud. So it means if there is a particular key concept, key definition, If it gets larger in the word cloud, then you know that more and more students have selected that as being an important thing that they need to remember. You can also save the results from your polls, icebreaker, to PDF with a free account. With a paid account, you can also export the results to Excel. There are a lot more functions. You can insert videos, collaborate, you can even use university branding. We have been exploring getting a Mentimeter university account, so we are looking to see if we can purchase this and use it with engaging students, so we might be successful in that. But what I'm going to do is show you how you can insert a word cloud. So what I'm going to do quickly is I will escape my PowerPoint presentation. So I will go to, so this is my account. My account is up and running. I'm going to click on poll example. So when you look at the type, so I could change it to a multiple choice, and I could indicate what I think is the correct answer. I'm not going to tell you which one I think it is. You can also kind of customize it by closing photos. You could, after a certain point, the more advanced layout, the advanced colors, that's something that comes with the paid account. I'm going to go back to the ranking. So very easy just to type in the question here. So it comes up with what I put here. What I'm now going to do, so I'll show you how to embed it into your PowerPoint. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to go to Insert. It might look slightly different on your computer, but I'm going to go to Add-in, Office Store, and I'm going to search for Mentimeter. Helps if I spell it correctly. There we go. So if it continue. Well, I would do that and it would normally work, but for some reason it's not wanting to do it for me. But what I can do is at least show you what it would look like if you were to present it. So normally what I would do is I would get to this stage, I'd have my poll ready, I'd click present, I'd then copy the link, and if I escape here again, when it came to adding my Mentimeter poll, I would just copy and paste the link. Unfortunately, it's not letting me do that right now, but that's what that you can do to add it. So here, if you're wanting to use the poll, you would direct students to the mentimeter.com, get them to use the code, and they'd simply just rate which one they wanted. If I go back to my presentations, so I've got some existing ones that I might want to export the results. So for here, when it says 23 voices, this is the number of participants that would have taken part. So this is an example of a word cloud. And I've used this in some of my classes because I asked students to generate as many words beginning with the letter S, but I never actually say which language it needs to be in. And it always intrigues me that they initially start off with English, when my module is on bilingualism, and I talk about the importance of being aware of dominant, non-dominant language. So it's a good tool to kind of reinforce what I'm covering in lectures. So this is an example of a word cloud. So if we go to type, because this has already been used before, it gives you the word cloud. But you might want to keep your results in some way, so to share with students later. So you can do is download results. Of course, the export to Excel is requires payment, but I would normally just download the PDF, and then I would insert it in the presentation next week to show you kind of what that they've mentioned. So this is how I use it for a word poll, for creating a word cloud. If I go back to my presentations, and for this one, stress management. So I've given how do you manage with stress and anxiety. When you click on type, and notice that I've put open-ended. I can also download the results. I could also put an image there. But what I'm now going to talk you through is creating a basic mentimeter example. So I'm going to call this demo. Very invented of me, I know. There we go. So I could go for a multiple choice question. I could go for a word cloud, something open-ended, a Q&A if you want to ask your opinion. So I'll go with this one. So, do you want 5-minute break? And you could turn on moderation if you wanted. You can allow audience to see other people's questions or just the ones that they present. But you could put something like that. You can also enter presenter notes if you need to remind yourself if you want to ask particular things. So for this one, and they could either put yes, no, if they wanted a break or not. So it's very easy to create different types of content. You can also change it to scale. Could add a longer description, add another statement, or word cloud. You can also limit the number of entries per participant. So you can, if you want to do a word cloud, you could maybe give them multiple opportunities for them to enter something in there. So with the free account, it is fairly easy to use. So I find it a little bit easier to use compared to something like Socrates. So that's why I started off using Mentimeter, because I found Mentimeter a little bit user-friendly. So that was my quick whistle-stop tour of how you could potentially use Mentimeter in your classes, and I hope that was useful.